Right, welcome to the, in this session I'm going to play back firstly what's gone on since the last time we met and the latest developments that we're working on, and then we'll move on to the roadmap and have a look at the items that are a bit further out. So let's jump in. In 38, this is released in December. One of the main things we worked on were secrets. So stored in the Galasa service. They are now encrypted and you can manipulate them. Galasa has 4 types of secrets. If you're using Galasa locally, it also has 4 types of secrets that the test cases can get to if they want any of these particular permutations of properties. We also store who changed it last and when it was last changed, a little piece of metadata on the service itself. So that was one change. Another thing we did in 38 was a lot of upgrading. Lots of our dependencies were down level, getting a bit out of date, not maybe stale a bit. So we did a huge amount of work upgrading lots of our dependencies and the things that they depend on, so that firstly we were clean when we did scans for possible vulnerabilities. Don't want anyone taking advantage of those, and we wanted to keep Galasa up to date and vibrant. So lots of work done on that in 38. Not the most interesting thing to talk about, but I'll save you the details of what was upgraded to what. But moving on to 39, this was released in January. One of the changes we did was to make more use of this group. So when you launch a run, you can specify a group, and that group will be usable when you want to query back the results of the tests. So you can query it back by the group. So you can make up your own group, and if you don't specify it, we'll make one up for you. You can see these long UUIDs, but they can be more meaningful. And it just means if you've got a particular grouping you want to launch them on, for example, if you're automating things, you might have a regression bucket. You might want to say that and then see how the regression bucket's done in the last 2 days or something. So you can use it in addition to these filters, just to narrow down which test results you're querying back. Another thing we did was to make the code more simpler to contribute to. So before we made the change, we had all these repositories, and after the change, we ended up with one big repository containing all of the Java code and lots of the, well, really the core of Galasa, and all of the other pieces, the satellite pieces, are kind of on the edge of the core, so they're in separate repositories still. So it's a lot easier now to get hold of a smaller number of repositories and build which pieces you want. We have the GitHub Actions build processes in the repositories as well. And we also changed the versioning scheme such that when you look at something now in Galasa and you see a version, everything is of that version. So you can spot when things are not running compatible versions or the same version. And whereas before it used to be a bit of a, everything was versioned separately. So this should make it easier to understand and make sure you're at the right version, and easier to pick out which version you're using. So here we come to changes in release 40, which is not out yet. We're expecting 40 to go at the end of February. So here's a sneak peek of what we've been up to. And firstly, CPS property changes. We now allow a blank value, and we allow @ characters to be in a property name. So if you want to put an email address or something in as a property name, for whatever reason, you can do. And if you want to set a CPS property up so it exists, but it has a blank value, you can now do that either through the YAML or through the command line interface or through the REST interface. So in different ZOS systems, you can log on in different ways, and you can configure your ZOS system to challenge users with different prompts. That's a customizable thing. And if someone's customized it, you need to match that if you're going to supply the Apple ID in the right format for the login procedure. So having a configurable login procedure that's controllable from CPS property is a good idea, and that's a change that's gone into version 40, supplied by Mr. Ian Dealey of the IBM TAS team. Another goal of making things easier to contribute to Galasa is we now support forks. So in the past, it was tricky to contribute to Galasa, but now it couldn't be simpler. Following the pattern that most open source projects use now, we expect contributors to fork the repositories, get the build process running in their own organization, and we have instructions on how to do that. There's a few secrets you need to set in order to do that. But essentially, anything we can build in the Galasa Dev organization, you can build in your own personal organization as well. And that will allow you to fork the code, develop the code, build it yourself, test it yourself, and then offer a PR to be merged back in and reviewed, whatever. If you're going to do that, we recommend you open a PR as soon as you can, rather than wait till everything is fully formed, so we can discuss what you're doing in the pull request as well. But hopefully this will make things a lot easier for contributors, and at some point in the near future, all of the developers from my team are going to switch over to using forks as well. This means you don't need any permissions in the Galasa team's organization to be able to contribute, whereas it was pretty difficult to do without permissions before. We still get to review pull requests before they're even built in the Galasa org and before they're merged in. So the contributors with permissions for access to the code still get a say in what goes in. One of the big changes, as was mentioned before, is role-based access control. So we've added in the Galasa service the ability to for users to have roles. So a user has a role, and a role allows you to perform a number of actions. And if you've got a role that doesn't have the actions, then the service will reject your request as not permitted. Forbidden, I think, is the HTTP code. Now, we already know users can create tokens on the Galasa service, and they represent the user. So they have the same role as the user currently has. There's no separate role for a token, and the token will always track back to the current role of that user. So that's the model of how it works. So we have several roles off the shelf. We don't allow custom roles to be created yet. We have a deactivated role where someone has the ability to log on to the system, but they can't do anything. And that might be useful were you to have a desire to deny people the ability to do anything as they're leaving the company or the team or whatever. Before you've pulled their rights from LDAP. If they have no LDAP rights, then they won't be able to log in anyway. But this allows you to log in, but you can't do anything. Then we have a tester role who can run tests, look at results, diagnose errors in the system under test, look at test cases, that kind of thing. But they can't do some of the things that the admin can do now. So like setting a CPS property, setting secrets, getting the values of secrets in a unredacted form, deleting other users, changing the roles of other users. That's all something an admin can do. So an admin can promote a tester into an admin as well. Automated jobs might run with admin privileges to be able to set CPS properties, for example. So if you've got robots out there, you might want them to have admin roles. And we've got a special role called owner. Like multiple people can be joint owners of the service. But this is a mechanism where we're trying to stop a system existing without someone that has admin rights. So if you're nominated when the Galasa service is installed or updated, you are blessed with the owner role. No one else can get it. No one can be set to be the owner role outside of Kubernetes administration activity. And the owner can't be deleted and they can't have their role changed. So they're like a permanent fixture until someone changes the Kubernetes configuration underneath. This is so that if it's to try and stop systems not having any admins left if people leave the team or whatever. And given that you can do some Kubernetes configuration to nominate a different list of owners, you can recover a system that has no active administration. When you set the service up, you can configure a default user role. So anyone logging in fresh will get that role. Existing users, if you upgrade to 40, will be admins. They're admins now, we just don't have RBAC installed. But when you install 40, it will make all of the existing users admins. But any new users logging in will come in as the default user role. So that might be deactivated or it might be testers. And I've talked about owner already. How they surface, when you get the list of users on the system, you'll see the login names they use and the role. Yeah. So you can see what who has what role. You can also see it on the user interface, on the web user interface. So list of, you have a table of all the users on the system. This is currently under development. And you can set a role if you're an admin of another user. So here's someone setting the mCobbit login ID to be an admin as well. So administrators can't change their own role, but they can change the roles of other people. Non-admins can't change any roles of users, and owners, no one can change their role. And beyond doing some Kubernetes systems admin. So that's a catch up of where we've got to in a few minutes. Let's have a quick look at where we're going next. So in the close time frame, we're hoping to be able to do some configuration of the service that allows you to firstly pull test cases from password protected Maven repositories. So we aim to support basic authentication, as in when you set your stream up that indicates where your trusted source of test cases can be loaded from. We intend to add the name of a credential that we can use for that. And we also want to maintain a list of public certificates so that tests can access over HTTPS and use HTTPS to contact remote systems. If you've got HTTPS custom certificates, for example, you really need a way of injecting them into the Galasa service so that the test cases, when they run in that service, can talk out to this protected system. You can do it right now, but it's not very pretty and it's not very easy to do. You have to put them into the Docker image and then reconfigure Galasa service to use that Docker image when it runs a test. Not ideal. We'd like it to be much more software as a service kind of feel to it. Role-based access I've already spoken about. We've got some other bits and pieces that we've been changing and that we intend to change based on smaller customer requirements. And the version of etcd that we use, or etcd, depending on the pronunciation, we need to upgrade that. It's getting a bit old and we're missing features like secure login to etcd for any clients. We've started doing some background work on moving tests around in our infrastructure, and we'll continue to do that to make testing of Galasa more efficient and better. Further out, we've got a maintained interest in making things more secure up to the point when we release version 1.0. So expiry times on access tokens, that's a must for lots of organizations. Using HTTPS inside the cluster instead of HTTP. And a problem that we've had for a while is using local Galasa, where it draws its credentials from a file, the file's in the clear. So we want to do some encryption around that. More Gherkin requirements, more small customer requirements, too numerous to list here, but if you're interested, go to see the board, you'll see the priority ordered backlog that we've got there. And then as we go out into the third quarter, continued focus on easier to maintain, and then lots of web UI work to do with viewing test cases, viewing test runs, viewing status, being able to diagnose problems, looking at test run logs, as well as charting successes, failures, that kind of thing. So we're starting to get the foundation by that point on which we can build some more interesting web user experience. Beyond that, well, it's a bit vague, but there's some ideas that we're targeting out there. Now, this is a roadmap. It's not commitments to deliver. It's a wish list, and we're the current contributors to Galasa are doing the best they can to tick off as many of these as possible. Okay, so that's caught you up on where we are and where we're going. Thank you very much.